Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Cheap Seats. I'm just trying to find the tagline. There we go. And this is your Premier League podcast show where we talk all things Premier League. We give you a sense of what's happened in the week, what's going on, and everything else. This past weekend, Manchester United lost to Manchester City in the derby, so we won't be having any Manchester United supporters on the show because they're out there crying and licking all their wounds. But we do have top of the table representation in Dean, Jean, Emile, and myself representing the top three. Even though some of us are following in Tottenham's footsteps, getting knocked out of the Carabao Cup, it is still an okay thing. Dean, I must say,
no one cares about the competition when you're knocked out. Eh? No one cares about it.
I'm not mad. I'm like, oh, okay, we're out. But yeah, remember the show is sponsored by Classic Shirts ZA. So please do go on their Instagram and at Classic Shirts ZA or their website at Classic Shirts ZA. I've got a shirt for Dean that he will enjoy. I don't know if it's the best away kit that Tottenham have ever had. But I'm a fan. I like the dark colors. I know Spurs have always played around with dark blue, Dean, but this is date night drip.
Yeah, it's one of those like classic looking kits that I think will sort of stand the test of time. It's that sort of classic navy. The iridescent like logo is a little bit flashy. The logo is not red, which is always a win for Spurs fans. Overall, I think it's a really great kit. It's definitely better than the third kit that we have this season, and we haven't played in it that often. So hopefully, for the rest of the season, we get to see it a little bit more often. I think one of the first games was against Brentford, which we drew. So maybe scratch that. Let's just stick to the home kit. We seem to be winning in it. Anything to make sure that
other colors is the problem.
Yeah.
Similar to Arsenal and that green highway kit that they have. So remember, you can also like and subscribe to the One World Sports Radio YouTube channel. We are there, and please leave a comment and do all the things that you do on other podcasts. Please do them on ours. So we're 10 games in, gents, and someone's team's at the top of the log. We're a quarter of the way through the season. So I thought, let's have some 10 games of the season awards. 10 games into the season, a lot of people will always say, now only start focusing on the Premier League 10 games in. And so we're here. And the question is, the log, normally, historically, at this point in time, the log doesn't move as much. And 80% of the previous seasons, the log doesn't move much from 10 games of the season. So it's a marker point. And I'm sure, Dean, you're very happy with Ange and him leading you to the top of the log.
Yeah, I mean, for Spurs to be unbeaten after 10 games is... I don't think I even could have dreamed about it at the start of the season. So just need Arsenal to lose, and then we'll be the only unbeaten team in the league. But it's going well so far. I saw a stat the other day that the top four teams, it's like the most points scored by the top four in the Premier League, top four teams in the Premier League for like ever, pretty much, I think. So it just goes to show that the quality of football by not only Spurs, like everyone around it, which would only be Spurs. Like obviously the year we do well, everyone's doing well. So it's been great football so far. But I think everyone, and I mean, as long as you're not a United fan, I think you're really enjoying the season.
Look, Jean Miller hasn't been the best of starts for you because I know you've started better in the season as Liverpool. But yeah, it's been an improvement on last season. I think you'd be happy with that and figuring out that you can turn around a midfield in 2 months.
Oh, I think if you had offered us fourth place at the start, like after 10 games and just 3 points behind Spurs, for Liverpool, I think every fan would have snatched your hand off because, especially considering we've literally rebuilt an entire midfield and they've clicked like that. I mean, I think that's unbelievable coaching from Klopp and also our assistant Pep Linders. I think he deserves his flowers. And the one game which we lost was against Spurs in the 95th minute. We were playing with 9 men and it was an own goal. I mean, I would, I would excuse us for that. The other draws, I mean, Chelsea away, Brighton away, they aren't traditionally easy teams to go to. So, I mean, admittedly, we should have, if we want to win the league, we should have gone to Stamford Bridge and won there, especially considering the season Chelsea have had. They've been absolutely atrocious.
They play well against big teams, which means when they play Tottenham this weekend, they actually might beat them.
Yeah, don't rule it out. Don't rule it out. And
I'm not
you
ruling
know,
it out either.
no, we know Spurs' record at Chelsea. Yeah, no, like it's gonna be interesting.
But I'm happy about it. It's a position where Spurs can be Spursy from now. You know, Arsenal did it last season. I need our neighbors to do it so it can be like a whole North London thing of throwing away league titles. Anyway, let's go into the awards. So we've just got a couple of awards that we're going to be going through, and we're just chatting about how teams have done, how players have done, and, you know, putting up our hands and also putting some players on fraud watch. So that's going to be quite interesting. So let's start with the team of the first 10 games. I know everyone's going to look at the log and say Spurs, but there's some contenders.
They're not wrong.
There's Aston Villa, who's sitting in 5th. There is Liverpool, who have improved immensely from last season. They're sitting in 4th. Another shout out is Brighton, but they're still, I say they're still the same where they are. And yeah, I think, and West Ham. I think West Ham have surprised me a lot. But Dean, I'm going to start with you. Is it Ange's superstars?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I'm biased here, but I don't think anyone can kind of dispute the fact that based on pre-league predictions of losing our greatest ever goal scorer, new coach that no one knows about, YouTube FC, no one can dispute the fact that Spurs have just had a phenomenal season so far. They have clicked to Jean's point, like Liverpool's midfield has clicked within 2 months. We've had a whole coach, a whole takeover regime click within the same period. So it takes take your hat off to Ange and what he's been able to do and bring in the youngsters, and they're really believing in the brand of football he's playing. Obviously, he's made some great signings, which we'll get into as well. But yeah, for me, there's no one other than Spurs in that category. But I do want to mention West Ham. I do think losing Rice is obviously a big loss to any team. But I also think they recruited well. Like, watching the game, I watched them versus Everton on the weekend, which they lost, but they seem to be playing well, like beating Arsenal in the Carabao Cup. Kudus looks like a really good signing for them from Ajax. James Ward-Prowse from Southampton, I think, is not a like-for-like replacement, but he does bring something different into that West Ham team. So they are 9th, which is probably above where you would have expected them to be in the summer after they lost their sort of star player. So take my hat off to them. They're not going to finish anywhere in the top 6, but they sort of keeping their head above water, I reckon.
Okay. Jean-Emile, where are you sitting on team of the first 10 games? Is it Spurs, or are you putting your team in the shop window for recognition?
No, I mean, certainly Liverpool has to be recognised as having improved massively and just being exciting to watch. And there's a new vigor about them. But no, Spurs definitely, I mean, being 5 points up until this last weekend ahead of the Premier League. I think it was for the first time since the 1960s, something ridiculous like that. I think what Ange has done and galvanised the team, and I mean, obviously you've got your individual players like Maddison who have been phenomenal and the best versions of themselves. I think Mickey van der Ven is the signing of the season so far. But it's really a team which has managed to get to that point, and I think that's the biggest praise that you can give the coaching staff and Ange himself. But certainly, you mentioned Aston Villa. I think what Unai Emery has done there is just wow. I mean, where they were with Steven Gerrard and now where they are, they've won 11 home games in a row for the first time since like 1983. That is ridiculous, especially when you've got guys like Douglas Luiz, who is just
nobody's business.
Unbelievable. And then just a quick mention for Brighton. I know they're 7th, and it's kind of more or less where they were at the back end of last season. But then to lose Caicedo and to lose McAllister, they've also had to reinvent themselves, and what De Zerbi has done. I think those are my top 3: Spurs, Aston Villa, and Brighton. Top 3 teams.
Yeah, I can't. My team is Aston Villa. I think for them to be sitting in fifth on the logs takes a lot and says a lot about what they're building. I think they had probably one of the best transfer windows of all the teams in the league, and so essentially, I look at that and I look at how Emery's got them humming. They have European ambitions and they're playing like a team that is destined for European honors, and it's just really refreshing to watch. And so, sorry, Dean, I couldn't pick you, but Angers Superstars is still there.
I wouldn't expect it. I wouldn't expect it. It'd be weird if you picked me.
Yeah, it would be. But let's move on to player of the first 10 games. We know midweek, I don't know, is it French football writers or whoever it is that does the Ballon d'Or in France, they decided to snub Erling Haaland after a pretty historic domestic season. But it's obviously not historic in Spanish terms because, yeah, but I think the Premier League is a little bit harder. But we've got that for another day, Jean-Emile. Are we snubbing Erling Haaland for player of the season, or are we giving it to a Spursy player, a James Maddison, a Son Heung-min? Where are you sitting on this one, Jean-Emile? Who's been your player of the season? And do you also want to add in a Mo Salah because he's looking hot too?
He's looking great, but he's not player of the season just yet. He's Mr. Consistent. He's not player of the season. I love him in the attacking and creative role that he's assumed now with Darwizi getting amongst the goals finally. But because I played as a defender and I love defenders personally, again, Mickey van der Ven for me is actually player of the season so far. I think, yeah, that's it's a bit of a bold call. I'm sorry, but Haaland does not excite me despite the goals, and I don't know what it is. It's just his positional sense is fantastic. He is clinical. He is a bully in around the 6-yard area, but he's not a player I literally get off my seat to watch as an attacker. And I think it has to be a Spurs player at this stage. It's either between Van der Ven and James Maddison.
Ooh, big calls there.
Not a big call. It's a right call. What are you talking about?
So, Dean, Maddison or Van der Ven?
No, it's Maddison. I mean, look, to Jean's point, I think Mickey van der Ven coming in 22 years old, very 21, 22 years old, coming from Wolfsburg, so not coming from the Premier League. The guy is so quick. Like, I have a chuckle to myself when players think they can beat him. Like, you're just not going to win a race against him. And he's very composed, and he's made Romero look even better than what we sort of used to seeing in the previous seasons, which it's just a bigger sort of compliment to what Mickey's been able to do. So I think Dutch defenders often produce like sort of world class players, and I think Mickey van der Ven is just one of those that people are going to be talking about for a really long time. But for me, yeah, James Maddison, the way that he's come into the Spurs side and just made it, he was the puzzle that we were missing for the past 5-6 years. Him and Kane would have, again, sometimes you think about it and you just cry, but his assist game, but also the ability to be in the right areas where he needs to be. He's delivering to the box. He's already got a connection with Son, which we're so used to seeing the Kane-Son connection, and to see Maddison come in, hit that connection already. It's just really great to see. So being made vice captain also kind of shows first season at Spurs, and for Ange to say, well, this is the kind of guy I want to have the boys sort of come around. Talks a lot about his personality. And a lot of guys said that we got Maddison at the right point. He's sort of a little maturer than what he was at maybe at Leicester. He's kind of grown his game, got different facets. So yeah, for me, Maddison, but I can talk about Spurs all day, so don't let me.
I will not let you talk about Spurs all day. And this is the one award where I'm not going to disagree with you. I think James Maddison's been sensational. He's been the reason why Spurs are up there. Son's come back, and Son's taken the leadership role, and he needs to be recognized. And so the thing for me, when I look at the only other team that I could probably pick a player out of for player of the season is Erling Haaland, right? And he's my irritation is with people, it's stats and they'll be like goal and assists and goals. And actually, when you do goals and assists together, goal involvements, it's Mo Salah who leads the pack. And if we want to go back to those years, you can do that. But I'm happy that you've picked a defender. I think I'd put William Saliba in there, but we all know what William can do. He's done it last year. He's doing it again. The only problem is everyone else around him just doesn't know how to play football at Arsenal. But they're still up there, and he's doing really well. Whereas if I look at Aston Villa, it feels like it's more of a team effort. Ollie Watkins is there. Not banging goals, but he's coming in with assists. But like that midfield seems to work together, and you can't necessarily, oh no, that's the guy, because 1 week it'll be Musa Diaby, the other week will be Leon Bailey, the other week it'll be Watkins banging like 3 or 4 goals in one game or something weird like that. So I'll put it up there and be like, hey, the other player that I want to shout out to for player of this first 10 games is, it's unlucky that he got injured in like game 7. That's Estupinian. I thought Estupinian from Brighton was just believable. And he is somebody, if anybody's looking for a left back who is attacking, someone you could go to. Defensively, still some questions, but
if he was in a team of the season so far, I think you can put him at left back.
He's my left back for team of the first 10 games. He's been insane. Manager of the season, Ange's Angels. It is Unai Emery. Are we looking at Klopp with an invigoration? Dean, obviously, I know it would be Ange. So tell us a little bit more about what Ange has done, the Australian that nobody knew coming in and letting Harry Kane go.
I mean, I don't even have to talk about it. He's won back-to-back manager of the month. He's nominated it now for the third one. Probably going to win it because he's the only coach that won the 3 games in October. But I think over and above all, and we can sort of praise him for sort of everything he has and done. But the biggest thing for me is he came there with an idea and he didn't sort of waver from it. And that's the mark for me of a great coach. Like he has that sort of famous quote where he says, like, if a vegan's hungry, they don't slip into McDonald's just to get a bite to eat. You know, you stick to your morals, and he wants to play attacking football. He's going to be on the front foot. He's got his system, and that's the way he wants to play, whether it's Chelsea, whether it's Luton, whether it's, Champions League next year, hopefully. That's the way we're always going to play with Ange. So for me, it's that ability to come into a new league, because he hasn't been, I mean, obviously coaching Celtic there's a different type of pressure there because of just there's only really Celtic and Rangers. But coming into the Premier League at a side that was sort of in despair, I don't know how Levy does it. He hits goal like just by pure luck. I don't understand it how, but he has again. He did it with Poch, and now he's got it with Ange. So walking into a brand new league, team that's in a bit of a disarray, lost Kane, like we've said, but what he's done and pulled all the players together and get players to believe in not only him but also in themselves, and see a sort of resurgence in certain players like a Basuma and a Sarr, and also get the new guys in like Mickey and Madison, like we've said. It's the mark of a great coach, and he's gone from nobody knowing how to produce his surname to people singing songs about him. So that's all you need to know.
Big Ange Postecoglou. I know he's undefeated in the league, but Jean-Emile, is there a case for anybody else like a Unai Emery?
Ten Hag. Surely Ten Hag is somewhere around.
With everything that's going on with the sale, he's done.
Oh my word! Oh no!
But is there a case for Unai Emery? Because Jean-Emile, my thing is with like an Aston Villa, right? They were never going to be top of the log. They were never going to be undefeated. They have probably a lesser squad than Spurs, even though Dean might disagree a little bit because he would probably think Aston Villa have a very good squad. But the work that he's done, he surely should get a shout for manager of the first 10 games.
Yeah, absolutely. Just again, you mentioned that team work. Obviously, Ollie Watkins is finding his form, and I think he really has to be playing a lot more for England. So as an individual attack, they've got the goals, which is fantastic. Let me just let my cat out there. But but it's just great to see that heritage of Aston Villa being a big club kind of being revived again. You know, they are European Cup winners, and Emery's bought into the culture of the club. He has gone about his business no problem, and he hasn't let his history at Arsenal also affect the way that the players and the fans of Aston Villa have bought into his style. He's basically just been incredibly mature about the way that he has handled the club, and I always did believe that he was a great coach. Obviously, watching Sevilla in the Europa League before that, I mean, he had something about him, but I mean, for whatever reason at Arsenal, it didn't work out. Aston Villa, finally, he's just got this cohesive unit. You mentioned the likes of Leon Bailey. You've got, again, Douglas Luiz. You've got an entire backline which is finally, cohesive, and it's just beautiful to watch that consistency again. Fifth in the table, and they do really look like they are good for not a Champions League spot, but at least a European spot. Just a quick word on Ange. It's no surprise that he is doing so well, because even the Liverpool fans love him, because he is obviously the biggest Liverpool fan amongst us.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what you get, right? If a guy coming from South Africa or anywhere else in the world coaching in the Premier League, he'll have a team that he actually likes. He also played FPL, so I don't know how well he did there. But yeah, the only bad thing about this season is he can't play FPL. So thanks, Dean. But I might call you
me,
FPL
so I don't want him to beat me in FPL, so it's fine.
Okay. The surprise of the season, good or bad? Which team or player has surprised you? Either way. A couple of the contenders for me. On a bad side is that team in red in Manchester, but they're not as bad as Chelsea. I thought Chelsea would be a lot better. The Manchester United players, all of them are surprised. We'll talk about frauds, but the good team that have done well. I'm surprised by Wolves. I thought they would be relegated. They're sitting in 12th. I'm really surprised, obviously, by Villa. I'm surprised by Brighton being able to handle Europe and keep themselves there, knowing that they play 3 times a week now. And yes, obviously Tottenham, but we're not going to talk about Tottenham. We're going to talk about everyone else. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Brentford and West Ham, because I think Brentford and West Ham are giving themselves a chance at the European spots and playing really well. And those are the teams that have surprised me. And Dean, outside of Tottenham, because Tottenham surprising everyone and doing everything else, who else has surprised you?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a surprise as much, but it's similar to your point about Brighton. I think the pressure on Newcastle playing 3 times a week as well, but also Champions League, and seeing the performance they put up against like a PSG, they still have a bit of sort of slip ups here and there, but I do still think Eddie Howe is doing a really good job at Newcastle. And it's not maybe a surprise, but seeing the way that they cope and seeing that they're developing their squad, they're still not just going out and buying sort of the big names, although Tonali, there's a bit of debate about the Tonali situation at the moment, so we'll leave that one. But
that was a big surprise.
Massive surprise. But yeah, I think you sort of hit the nail on the head. For me, Brentford as well, losing Tony and sort of relying on a Visa and an Mbuemo. I mean, they definitely have quality, but losing your star striker and still sticking thereabouts, hanging on to 10th, but beating Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. And Thomas Frank is a really good coach. I think he goes under the radar quite often, but against the bigger teams, a lot of guys find him really, really difficult to break down. City lost both games last season. Spurs drew against him this season. Chelsea lost over the weekend. So I think he sets up that back 5 really, really well. And yeah, Tony comes back in January. Whether or not he's still wearing a Brentford shirt, we'll wait and see. But I think for me, those two they were at the sort of top half of the table last year, but sticking it out despite what's happened to them, and being able to play so many games, like I said, with Newcastle is still surprising for me. We won't talk about the bad guys. We'll talk about
we'll talk about them later. Yeah. Jean-Emile, I look at players like Hwang Hee-chan who come out of South Korea, didn't have a great first
Korean
year.
guy. Yeah.
Yes, that Korean guy. Um, and I put him up there, right, along with Wolves and Pedro Neto. And Wolves literally sold everybody to the Saudi league. And I still
Except for Jimenez. Yeah.
yes, who went to Fulham. But they're sitting in 12th above Fulham.
Yeah.
And sitting in a spot where they probably are even from a sporting model. For me, it's always a situation where it looks like they're downsizing, right? Everyone's trying to add on more and do more, but they are sitting there going, actually, we need to try and do a bit of a reset. But in that, which is why I thought they'd get relegated. But so for me, Hwang Hee-chan is my surprise, because I was sitting there going, this guy could end up on 15 goals, which is a really good mark for a striker. But who has also surprised you in this league?
I will say, okay, firstly, because I obviously watch all the games, and sorry again to put my Liverpool hat on, Dominic Soboslai has been a revelation. It's just so much fun to watch as a fan, and I think he actually literally raises the level of the Premier League against other leagues. I think, I mean, you look at these strikers who have done well in the kind of mid-table teams, like your Ollie Watkins, like your Hans. They are actually performing all. I mean, Brighton as a team up front, I've been immensely impressed by them. Honestly, most of my surprises have been bad, though. Just how bad Chelsea have been, how bad United have been. Those, unfortunately, I have to say, those are my biggest surprises. And I have to say also a surprise, and I might be being a bit harsh here, but I did expect Burnley to make a bigger splash when they came into the Premier League. And Vincent Kompany, he had them playing the most fantastic, expansive football in the Championship. And they haven't really been able to translate that into the Premier League, sitting second from bottom now. So I think that is a surprise. And I really just hope that I'm no longer surprised by the end of the season. I would like Burnley to stay up.
You'd like Burnley to stay up. I actually have a team that I'm surprised by. I'm surprised they're out of the relegation zone, and that's Everton. I thought Everton would be rock bottom. But it seems as though the last couple of games and after the derby, they are actually putting up a run of games, and they're playing really well. I think they played West Ham well this weekend. They didn't win.
That's the thing.
Yeah,
if you keep DCL fit.
100%. I was going to say, Dominic Calvert-Lewin is literally the piece that keeps that cog turning. He's just everything for Everton.
Yeah, especially with everything. Obviously, now the owner is under an embargo and so many things, and they're trying to sell, and it's just not working. They also have like a stadium they need to build.
And of course, RIP Bill Kenwright, the chairman.
Yeah. So let's move on to the fun part of the show. The fraud of the first 10 games. This is where you're going to put players on fraud watch, right? I'd like to put Anthony on fraud watch, Eric Ten Hag on fraud watch, Marcus Rashford back onto fraud watch. But is there anybody else that you'd like to put on fraud watch? I'm going to go with you, Jean-Emile, first up.
Again, maybe a bit harsh, and possibly because we lost out on him, but Moises Caicedo, I just... Wow.
Already? He's only played like 6 games.
Yeah, that's enough. Eh? It's not the one. Hey, it's not the one. And also Chelsea's general recruitment policy, and I mean, Pochettino, guys, it's horrible. It's horrible.
Add Nicholas Jackson to that. I don't know why they bought him. I don't know what was going on. If there ever was a YouTube FC, it's them. Sorry, Dean. Might have to give it to them, because I didn't even know. I was sitting there going, wait, you got a guy from Villarreal that's not Samuel Chukwueze. And you're going to come and tell me about Nicholas Jackson. But yeah, Dean, anybody you'd like to put on fraud watch?
Yeah, I think from the United side, Mason Mount is definitely up there for me. We haven't mentioned him. Onana's kind of maybe sort of redeemed himself with maybe the last 1 or 2 games, but he was very much up there. But yeah, for me, the biggest one is Nicholas Jackson. Cyrus's call of he looks like a young Drogba is going to go down in history as one of the worst calls in the world. It's right up there with what he's saying Lallana is going to shoot lights out at Brighton. Yeah, I think the big thing for me is if you have a look at that United and Chelsea team before the league started, we were talking, everyone was saying putting them in the top 4, top 5 minimum. And you kind of look at it now and, who would you rather be? Would you rather be a United fan or would you rather be a Chelsea fan? And, I think there's arguments for both. But for me, I think United just have less reasons to be hopeful. I think they've had a year and a half under Ten Hag. It doesn't look anything like he can find a bit of flair from anyone. You've got Anthony coming onto the pitch in the City derby, in the Manchester derby, and just trying to kick the life out of Doku, throwing his toys out the cart. Fernandes moaning, Carabao Cup losing to Newcastle. It's like this downward spiral, and you start thinking, do you get rid of Ten Hag? But then who do you bring in? Is it Zidane? Is it Conte? Like this just doesn't look like there's hope. And that's the thing. I think for United, no hope, and the whole team's on fraud watch. To be honest, Rashford wants to go pack sandwiches again.
Except
Anthony,
Harry Maguire, and Scott McTominay.
This is what your shining light is. Harry Maguire. How bad is your season for your shining light?
He had a horrible match against City.
Oh
yeah, no, it like we watched that derby and I felt sorry. It was the first time I felt sorry for them because there was no path back. They had nothing, and City could have taken that game to 6-0 if they wanted to. And that entire team's on fraud watch. The only, for me with Chelsea, the only shining light is Enzo. I sit there going, build around Enzo, you'll be fine. And just make him an 8, make him just play on either side, and then just find guys who can play around him, right? And they do have some sort of a formula. I think I like Cole Palmer a lot, but I don't know if I think everything else.
Poch is still trying to figure out his players. He still doesn't know who his best starting 11 is. He still doesn't know who plays where, like when. The game against Brentford, everyone's going to struggle, but that's my thing. He will, as a ex-Poch fan, because now I don't care. I can't wait to boo him on Monday. He will find a way, he should find a light, and they will eventually, they're not going to finish top 4, I don't think, this season, but they'll find somewhere where they'll maybe hold some respect. United, on the other hand, it's not the bottom. They haven't hit rock bottom. They could still carry on going a lot lower down.
Until that club gets sold, they will not have any kind of hope, because honestly, that permeates that toxicity permeates right down from the owners to the management to the players. And it's one thing where you're a good coach in terms of you can get your message across on the field and your tactics work, but you also sometimes need a little bit of character behind you to make the fans get behind you in the first place. Someone enthusiastic, someone with a bit of personality. Right now, Ten Hag is not galvanizing people. He's the kind of coach where if it works on the field, everyone's great. But if it's not, then all of a sudden fraud watch is really high. And it's just it's rough to be a United fan right now.
Casemiro, biggest fraud watch. Dude, you can't give us a season you gave us last year.
These guys don't care. They're just honestly, why should they care? I mean, what does United mean to them? That's the point. Does Manchester United actually mean anything to them? I mean, Marcus Rashford, you could say, but again, then that's just even worse because he's really not showing anything. It's just it's not great.
Benching your marquee signing, giving him the number 7 shirt and just leaving him on the bench in derby games. What are you doing?
No trust.
Mason Mount is going through the most right now, but maybe Jadon Sancho was right. We don't know. We'll find out.
I think we know. He's right.
Interesting question to come off of that, right? We're in November, which means managers are going to start getting fired, right? Last year it was a little bit earlier because of the World Cup. Guys wanted to have some sort of a preseason with a new coach. Who's the first manager that's getting fired? Jean-Emile?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Because, based on form, I would normally say Eric Ten Hag or Poch, but like it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense because they are not the fundamental root cause of the problems of what's going on. Yes, they haven't, covered themselves in glory lately because really they could have picked better teams on the occasion and they could have done better in the situation. But I don't think that's quite there. I worry a little bit for Vincent Company, a little bit.
Yes.
I don't know. I think we're kind of like in a stage where, strangely enough, I don't think that there is a firing in the reckoning yet. I think after about maybe 16, 17 games, and you're going to start seeing someone. So unfortunately, I can't actually answer that question right now.
Yeah, I'd be looking at obviously Luton because they haven't won a game in 10. And obviously Vincent Company's only won 1 in 10 as well. So those are the two on the chopping block. But the big one that actually should be fired is Eric Ten Hag. But he won't be fired because this place is in flux. Well, United's in flux with everything, right? Dean, are you looking at the bottom feeders there in terms of firing? Is there anybody who's missing the European call that you like, this guy's in trouble?
I know it sounds rude, but I don't know how much longer Palace can hold on to or poor Roy over there. I don't know if it's about firing or just letting the man retire. Like watching him in the game that we played on Friday night, like just let the guy go and enjoy life, guys.
Go in peace.
Just let him go. But no, I do think, I think with the teams that come up, there's normally at least one shining light in the three that come up. But this season, they really are terrible. And Vincent Company, for me, based on the football he played last season, maybe a little bit safer. But the Sheffield coach, to be honest, I don't know what his name is because it's insignificant. But like 1 point, and they are just the battering ram this season. So one of them should, but again, then who do you sort of go and get? But right at the top of the list has to be Ten Hag. Like I'm surprised if United don't turn it around. I'd be surprised if he makes it to the new year, just based on everything that's going on.
Yeah, it looks really bad. But the Sheffield coach is Paul Heckingbottom. They did sell Sander Berge, and so they deserve to be at the bottom. You can't sell your best players and think that you can get out of the relegation.
Unless you're Ange Postecoglou, then you can do whatever you want.
Oh, big Ange Postecoglou. Okay, final one of the show. Teams that will improve and teams that will regress. So we're sitting with Tottenham at the top. I'm saying they're going to regress by virtue of them being at the top. But I do think the top 4 has been solidified. I do think the top 4 is going to look like this, but it might look in a different way. So that is my regress team. The team that's going to improve to win it all is the team that's sitting in second. Just joking. No, actually, no, I'm not. But I think the team that's going to improve a lot is West Ham. I think West Ham, if they continue this and Manchester United don't fire Eric Ten Hag, I think they will end up in the European spots and Manchester United might find themselves outside. I do think Everton's going to move up the log. I do think Wolves and Fulham are going to drop. And Crystal Palace, by the way. That's where Roy Hodgson gets told to resign or retire. Dean, what are you thinking?
Yeah, for me, I think I mentioned it earlier, but Brentford for me look like a team that will either stay where they are, but generally improve, particularly with sort of the players that they've got coming back. I mentioned Tony, but I do think they've got a fairly decent run coming up in the next 2 or 3 games. They got over a bit of a hump with they've played some tougher games, so I do think they'll look to improve. And yeah, to be honest, I'm going to mention it again. For me, the team that's going to regress is United. Like I don't see them finishing top half of the table if things continue. You can kind of see how bad it could get based on the next couple games that they've got sort of coming up. It's games that they could win, but we said that against City, and they've got Luton and Everton, but then they got Newcastle, Chelsea, they got Liverpool coming up in December. So it's tough games that the weaknesses that you're already showing are going to get found out even more by those teams. So for me, unless something changes, I see United really, really having one of those seasons that eventually, hopefully, then all the fake United fans are going to fall off the face of the earth. It's like Chelsea fans. Chelsea fans only come out when it's the transfer window. It's hopefully now United fans are going to fall apart when they end up in the bottom half of the table. So yeah, for me, clear as day.
Jean-Emile?
I think there's only one way for Chelsea to go. I think that they have to improve, and it's just a case of playing together more. I think watch out for Newcastle and Manchester City. Once Kevin De Bruyne comes back, Man City will be a lot more consistent. They've already got Kovacic covering the gaps in the midfield, and I think just in terms of general depth, Josko Gvardiol has been fantastic in defense. It's Man City, and you have to almost still say that they are favorites to win the title. I'm sorry, Spurs, like you guys have done excellently, but yeah, you do feel that they will be there. But I think you're 100% bang on the money in terms of saying that this is the general way that the league is going to look even come the end of the season. I don't see positions changing altogether that much, just in terms of how competitive it is, firstly, because most of the teams are almost at their peak of where they can be. I just think maybe the top four might change around a bit, and you could see Newcastle sneaking in at the expense of someone, but I don't know actually who that might be, because the top four do seem so strong and set in their ways. Possibly if there's problems with injuries with Liverpool, or when the AFCON comes around, we might struggle, or maybe with Arsenal, but you guys have looked like you have learned from last season, so there's a bit more maturity and you're getting those results which you wouldn't have got with that Manchester City win. Not last night, no.
West Ham had the way with us.
No, absolutely not. Again, as a football purist, I would like to see, sorry, I keep talking on about Burnley, but I'd like to see their original identity come through and push up the table. And then in terms of regress, Dean's absolutely correct. That game last night between Newcastle and United, you literally saw two teams, one evolving and one devolving. Like it was like a reverse Pokemon. It was honestly just awful. Manchester United is just going down and down and down. For a great institution that they are, obviously it's terrible for the fans, but until you make a concerted stand and get the Glazers completely out and possibly a new coach, but change the entire mindset of the club, you guys are going to finish mid-table, possibly bottom half.
Yeah, and to a certain extent, that's what it was, and I think that's this season for Manchester United fans, is that they're great content, but every game you'll see that there's a gulf. And even this weekend when they're going up against Fulham's going to give them a run of their money, and Fulham shouldn't, But it is what it is. But looking to this weekend, gents, I know, Dean, you've got a Monday night clash. I hate Monday night games when I'm on top of the log. I've got a Monday night clash with Chelsea, who have played well against Liverpool and Arsenal. So you might see Nicholas Jackson score against you, and Cyrus come back next week telling you that, oh, you see, that's Drogba. But yeah, it should be a good one. I love how Liverpool gets the Sunday evening game with Luton, which I don't get. Whoever scheduled that is
at Luton as well on a Sunday evening.
The poor neighbors who are preparing for school the next morning, and they've got a game to deal with, and it's Liverpool of all things. But then obviously Arsenal playing which I think is a match of the round, and it's going to be quite interesting to see how this Newcastle team comes up against this Arsenal side at home, with all the noise that the Geordies make, like they did last night. And it's just going to be quite a big one. And I think, Arsenal are deadly when they're wounded. But the other thing is it's an opportunity to go top of the log and then to sit and watch Spurs haggle it with Chelsea to see if they can't lose control of that top spot. So there's a lot of games, guys. So good luck. But that brings us to the end of our show. That's been a great show. We're 10 games in. Will it last? We don't know. Will Dean walk away with the trophy? I don't know
Right.
what bet you made when you win if you ever win the Premier League with Wahid, but I think you should make one, because it might be coming
I'm
soon. Who
disappearing
knows?
off this. I'm disappearing. If Spurs win this league, I'm gone. No one will ever hear from me again. Life has peaked. I'm done.
Yeah, but yeah, that's what we love. And yeah, so all the best. Enjoy the football, and thank you very much, guys. Have a great week. Enjoy the football, and le sale cacajizo.